Welcome back. How will new research on what we already know about youth on the Suncoast? In December, Sarasota County Commissioners approved $165,000 for SCOPE to gather data on children in our area. During the meeting, the nonprofit provided information from a recent survey. In it, they found that 30 kids are removed from their homes each month due to drug issues or abuse. 18% are not graduating from high school. 18% are also living in poverty, and 900 children are homeless in our area. The group's CEO calls it a silent crisis. Joining us for more on what's already being done and how we can build on it is Lance Arney, Research and Community Engagement Consultant for SCOPE, Shannon Staub, Chair of the Positive Youth Development Council, and Susan Stewart, CEO of the Girl Scouts of Gulf Coast, Florida. Thank you all for joining us, and perhaps there is no more important subject that we can be talking about on this broadcast. Lance, if I could start with you, and if you could describe to us what is the goal in terms of the research your organization does and the information it produces?
Well, SCOPE is a research and community engagement nonprofit organization, and we collect data and do analysis on issues that are that have been identified as important by people in the community.
To both of you, how shocked were you when some of these early numbers came out?
Go ahead.
Well, I moved here in 2010, and I was shocked because what you see when you're in the city, in the county of Sarasota, there's this sense of community and sense of culture that's so positive and vibrant. So to see some of the numbers and know that our youth are suffering is of great concern.
You know, I've gotten into trouble before, and I'll get into trouble again tonight, because I have sometimes referred to what we're dealing with here on the Suncoast as the tale of two cities. I mean, no one could argue we are one of the most affluent, beautiful communities in the entire country, but these numbers in terms of 18% of the children living in Sarasota County, living in poverty, it just doesn't jive with what we see downtown.
I think it's just as Sandra Terry said, it's a hidden element of Sarasota County.
You know, I have put this question to people ranging from Donald Trump to Marco Rubio to Bernie Sanders. I've recited these numbers to them and asked them what the answer is, and the response is really not specific. Is the goal of this project that you are all embarked on not only just to reveal the problem, but to find out what as a community we need to do to solve it?
The Positive Youth Development Council actually started looking at this when they formed in 2010, and it's taken this long for us to get SCOPE stepped up to the plate to actually help us with it. But I think what we're looking at is a plan that is community driven. If the community doesn't participate and get behind it, it's not going to be just people on the top talking down. That won't affect change. And what we want to do with this plan is to make sure that the whole community is committed to our children and youth, and that we're going to make their well-being a whole lot better than it is now. You
said to me before we started tonight that this has been a goal of yours to get this information and get a project like this going for what, 2 decades?
Oh, well, that may be a little long, but yes, a long time.
What has been the problem up until now in terms of getting this going?
I think that up until 2010, we didn't have the CEOs of all of the organizations that deal with youth, the major organizations, collaborating. They got together early on in 2010, started collaborating, trying to improve services, trying to improve resources, and they finally really moved it ahead. It wasn't, you know, we've had our homeless, we've looked at the aged, we've looked at substance abuse and mental health. It is now time for kids.
Lance, what is the most important numbers that you deal with in terms of categories of statistics and numbers that are the most important for us to have an understanding of what the problem is and what we need to focus on?
Well, definitely the data on poverty and youth who are older youth, young adults who are not in school and unemployed. The figures are, I don't have the exact figures with me, but they don't look as good as they could for Sarasota County. And one of the things that the research we're going to do will allow us to do, like some of the figures you cited at the beginning, that's county level data, county level figures. So with the research we're doing, we'll be able to drill down on particular neighborhoods and areas of, Sarasota, Northport, and so on, all around the county, and really understand more local context, like what is going on in particular neighborhoods. So the poverty figure of 18%, that's countywide. There's neighborhoods where it's worse than that. There's areas where it's less than that. So that's the average.
But you make an important point. The answer to the problem in one part of our community may not be the same answer in another part. And the question is, are we prepared for this kind of effort that would take to deal with that kind of complicated roadmap?
I think we will be. These community youth plans have been done across the nation and very successful, so we'll be using a template that is successful, and we'll customize it to Sarasota County. And I just want to make one point. We can't forget the 0 to age 5. That is the most critical time when a child's brain is forming, their early literacy, and we can show the impact throughout their lives if we don't concentrate also on that. So we're looking at 0 through 21.
Right, because youngsters' brains are wired very early.
Yes.
And if we don't take care of them, we pay the consequences in many different ways when they're growing up. And your organization is key in terms of developing healthy young women.
I also see this as my community, all of our community, and we want to be so proud of where we live. And so when I think about youth, I think specifically about girls and all youth, both rich and poor, and what is the kind of legacy that we want to leave for our children.
Right.
Okay, we are just getting started in our conversation. We'll have more on understanding and addressing the problems facing our youth coming up, along with a check of our weather. So stay with us. Welcome back. If you are just joining us, we are discussing the County Commission's decision to approve $165,000 to research the issues affecting youth here on the Suncoast. Our guests tonight are Lance Arney of SCOPE, Shannon Staub of the Positive Youth Development Council, and Sue Stewart of the Girl Scouts of Gulf Coast, Florida. Thanks again for joining us. Lance, let me start with you because, we had some of the facts and figures here. 18% of our children in Sarasota County living in poverty, 900 are homeless. A lot of other really troubling statistics out there. And people watching this tonight may be in a little bit of overload. What should they keep in mind?
Well, if those figures keep getting worse, that means we're not really addressing the root causes of some of these issues. And so we hope that the research will reveal some of that, and that the community youth plan that we develop will address not only, these very serious social problems, but some of their root causes.
But some of these facts and figures are so daunting. You mentioned during our commercial break, 4% of our youngsters have committed suicide.
No, 1 in 4 consider it every year. 1 in 4 consider suicide every year.
Which is even more troubling. We did a story recently about the number of children who have had to be Baker acted and taken from their homes. So it seems like there is a broad range of things that we as a community must do, and that begs the question, what is the role of nonprofits like yours and government? Do you give it much thought?
I do. I think it's really important, especially now that as not-for-profits we work together. There's often the perception that we're fighting each other for mission, for funds, for donors, and yet together we're going to achieve so much more.
Well, has that been an obstacle in the past?
It has been in the past, but I think the Positive Youth Council and Shannon's leadership got us to really address the issues, because money is scarce for all of us. We also identified that, for example, a girl in Girl Scouting might be at the Boys and Girls Club, might be going to after-school programs at Laurel Civic, and we realized we didn't have a handle on our own clientele, if you will. So who are we missing?
So we can't afford to be territorial anymore. I'm going to get myself into trouble again, but that's okay. I remember listening to an interview with Ron Paul, the great libertarian former congressman, and he was asked about the social safety net. And he basically said there shouldn't be one in terms of what government offers. And the challenges that we've been talking about on tonight's broadcast are up to our community nonprofits, charity, or religious organizations to solve. Is he right to a certain extent? Is he totally right, or is he misguided? Lance, you're shaking your head.
Well, there needs to be a paradigm shift. We need to stop thinking about investing in children and youth as an expense or spending money, because if we don't invest in our children and youth now, the cost to us in the future is many times greater.
In terms of what?
Well, kids who don't have an adequate education or upbringing could end up in the juvenile justice system and then the adult correctional system. And the cost to incarcerate an individual in the state of Florida is many times more than the cost of educating someone in a state college.
But when we're talking about the role of nonprofits, charitable giving may be up, but it's been a rough couple of years for many of us here all around, and we've had less money to give to charity. So, do our nonprofits around here have the resources they need to step into where government may not?
Let me just say, I think that the inventory that's going to come out of the research will show us, supposedly there are 4,000 nonprofit 501c3s in Sarasota County.
4,000.
That was the last I heard. That was how many 990 tax forms were filed. That's a lot of nonprofits, some of which are probably small, probably duplicating what others are doing. And so the inventory will help see where the same thing is being duplicated and how we can bring those together. It also will show the silos. These programs just pop up, and a lot of times there's no cross-communication among those who are doing it, especially the smaller agencies who don't have the wherewithal. So I think we're an awfully giving community. The philanthropy in this county is unbelievable. And the volunteer time is part of the in-kind donations. So I think we really are going to have the community behind us. Now for government, having sat in a county seat, it's tough to prioritize. But I think what we can do through our leadership council that will be part of this organization that we're putting together, we will be able to advocate for our kids. And let's put the spotlight on them for 3 years and see where we go, because they're our future leaders.
Well, number one, the County Commission took the right step.
They did.
When they earmarked the money for this research project. But, money is tied on the state and the federal level. Are you concerned that you may better organize here locally with the nonprofits, but you're going to have a growing hole in terms of state and federal reimbursements?
Could be. I think we have to be smarter, more efficient, and make sure that we are all working on the same page. And then the expenses can be cut down, but the outcomes for the kids can go up.
Okay, let's take a quick break here, but when we return, we'll have final thoughts from our guests, plus what some of our viewers are saying about plans to dredge sand from Big Pass. Welcome back. How will having better information on the issues facing Suncoast's youth help us respond to their needs? Our guests join us now for final thoughts. Lance, what do you want people to take away from this conversation tonight?
Well, the development of the community youth plan, the very process is going to allow for philanthropists and business leaders and nonprofit organizations and government agencies and neighborhood leaders and parents and their children to come together to more deliberately think how we can all work together and have a collective impact that improves outcomes that we're concerned about. And the research and data component is going to allow the process to be informed by research and data and evidence rather than political ideology.
And Susan, we were talking before the show that what shouldn't be lost here is we often talk about the families that are very, very poor. The families that are wealthy have different problems. It's the people in the middle which we should be most concerned about in many ways.
One of the great pieces of data that we have in the community now is the ALICE report, and it really points to the many challenges that parents face today between the economy, transportation. How do I choose among children of where do they go and how they get there? So in a positive youth development culture, we're looking at the strengths of children, we're looking at the strengths of families and enhancing that.
And Shannon, when are we going to know what the results of this study are and what we should be doing about it?
Well, the plan is going to be starting full force ahead in the next week or so. We will be ended by the end of September with the plan with strategies and recommendations that have accountability, sustainability, particularly financial. And then part 2 will be making sure the community is there with us to implement those strategies. So I'm always the glass half full, so I'm saying I hope the community really does put the spotlight on our children and youth and support us with this plan.
Right. You all make an appointment for September. We're going to have you back to talk about what the results of this. Thank you all. But before we go, we want to share with you what some of our viewers are saying about plans to dredge Big Pass. Florida's Department of Economic Protection is preparing to issue a permit allowing the city of Sarasota and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to dredge more than 1 million cubic yards of sand to re-nourish Lido Beach. Yesterday, the County Commission decided not to bring a legal challenge, but Siesta residents are expected to do so. Here is what some of you are saying. Roger Dresden writes, comforting to know that the brain surgeons on the commission are right on top of this. Just know this, you mess around with Mother Nature and Mother Nature will mess around with you. Leave it be. And Mark Cianzo writes, it is the thing to do. We just spent, what, $21 million on sand from 10 miles out on Siesta? Well, half of it is gone already, lasted about 8 months, has another year left before Turtle Beach is completely back to where it was. And Ron Flynn writes, offshore sand renourished Turtle Beach, so why not plentiful offshore sand for Lido Key Beach? Well, if you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. And FYI, want to watch past roundtable discussions? They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. Thanks to our guests for being here tonight. Lance Arney is Research and Community Engagement Consultant to Scope. Shannon Staub is the Chair of the Positive Youth Development Council. And Sue Stewart is CEO of Girl Scouts of Gulf Coast, Florida.